Google has just released its VEO3 video model, and this is quite frankly a groundbreaking revolution in AI content generation. And that's because it can generate not just video, but also dialogue, music, and sound effects, all with just one prompt.
Do you think we are in VEO3?
If you cannot tell, does it matter?
In this video, I'm going to showcase some of the most remarkable, astounding, and beautiful examples coming out of VEO3, so you can understand what's possible, how you can use it, and how you could make money from it.
Are you paying attention?
Now, this is one of the most interesting examples, and it showcases the possibility of creating ASMR content with AI.
Hi, and welcome to the channel.
But really, the audio is mind-blowing for this. I mean, the actual quality of the ASMR sounds here are frankly remarkable.
Hi, and welcome to the channel.
Now, if I was thinking about starting a new AI YouTube channel right now, I would certainly think about creating an ASMR AI YouTube channel. I think that's a great opportunity right there for a faceless YouTube opportunity. Here we have an action sequence of a car crashing into a pole and then exploding, and the sound effects are extremely cinematic.
Un café con leche, por favor.
But it's these surreal types of situations where we're combining animated or CG characters with speech that are at the level where we can actually use them to create meaningful pieces of cinema. But the other interesting thing about this is that VEO3 can also generate in other languages. And now that opens up a whole host of possibilities for generating your content, not only in one language, English, but also taking an entire piece and regenerating it in other languages. And that opens up a whole host of possibilities for targeting a global audience.
Un café con leche, por favor.
Café con leche, por favor. I love this. This is one of my favorite examples. Though I would have to say one thing is that his hat does not just seem to be resting on his head appropriately. It seems to be slightly floating on top of his brows. This one was from Alexander Holiniski. A street interview from Min Choi.
Y'all gotta give him that. This is wild. It's over. We are cooked on that thread. You get me?
Now, what's incredible about this is that it creates the speech as well as the accents, and the video and merges them all together. And we can see that this is actually quite a challenging shot because we have multiple speakers.
One move with AI that makes haters go crazy every time.
Now, his face is also showing at profile, which makes it much harder to lip sync effectively.
Oh, y'all gotta give him that. This is wild. It's over. We are cooked on that thread. You get.
Now, the other important thing to note is actually that the speech does not quite make entire sense. It's rather surreal and nonsensical. Now, I believe that this has been because the prompt did not specify the exact text to put in, but simply asking it to create a style of interview. However, this does seem to take a huge amount of inspiration from the Hawk Tour street interview, which you can see here. And you can see the resemblance is quite uncanny, even down to the type of dress that she is wearing. Now, I will leave a link to all of the examples from this video in the description below, so you can check them out too. Now, there are a whole host of use cases that now become possible with the advent of VEO3. And this means that we can create much more complicated pieces of content that were never before possible. Now, here is an example of a stand-up comedian performing a routine.
And all they had was one dog. It was a Shih Tzu.
Now, what's incredibly interesting about this piece is that we see that not only does his facial expression react after delivering the punchline, but we get the audience laughter perfectly in time with the entire piece. Let's just watch that again and really pay attention to the timing of the laughter here.
Day, and all they had was one dog. It was a Shih Tzu.
Now, if we are going to be a little bit critical of this, we must pay attention to the slight morphing going on in the details here. You can pay attention just with the hand. Sometimes the fingers seem to merge together, or we get a very heavy motion blur. That one was from FOFR on X. Now, next up, we have an incredibly beautiful action sequence.
When we get in there, I want no bullshit. You stay on my 6 at all times.
Now, what's great about this is just how cinematic and engaging the camera work is. We've got a real natural sense of a handheld Steadicam that brings us right into the action. Now, I'd also like you to pay attention particularly to how the vehicle moves across the ground. This is something that's been very challenging for AI video to render perfectly. And the challenge is making sure that the vehicle is moving perfectly along its line of motion, that it's not sliding across the floor. Secondly, is that it's moving in a loci, in a path that would make sense. Often the driving lines that vehicles take with AI video are completely illogical and unsensical. Unsensical? Is that even a word? It's a very unsensical word.
On my 6 at all times.
Yes, it does seem that the vehicles are moving in a very believable way, and we get the wheels stopping perfectly in time with the actual vehicle, and even this slight shudder on the suspension from braking is beautiful. Just notice this.
Stay sharp. These fuckers are nasty and dangerous. Stay alert. Stay alert.
Now, another element here that's particularly beautiful to look at is just how consistent the aesthetic is from shot to shot. To the color grading, that the expressions, the continuity of the piece is absolutely mind-blowing. And to think this was entirely generated with just one tool is absolutely astounding.
What the hell happened here? Where are the bodies?
Now, one thing you would say is that this man is not quite looking down the sights, and it does seem a little bit as if his gun is slightly truncated, which is the only critique I have of this shot. This is the first shot that really makes it evident that this is a AI generation. But I would also love to pull out the sound design here, and not only just how well do the gunshots blast out in time to the muzzle flashes, but also listen to how the music changes as the pacing of the scene develops.
Here, where are the bodies?
Here we have this sort of ethereal, tension-building music, and then as soon as the antagonists appear, we switch to a more intense and vivid soundscape. Calm and ethereal, and then suddenly we've got the Brahms come in, and this intense action sequence really changes the feel of the scene. Now, what's incredibly exciting about this is we are reaching the point where we can make beautiful cinematic pieces of film simply using one prompt. And this opens up a whole world of creating cinema from our own computers. And this brings me no end of excitement for the possibilities that are just down the road. Now, if you are new here, I'm AI Samson, and on this channel we aim to explore the latest developments in creative technology and see what opportunities that provides us as creatives. So feel free to subscribe and come along for the adventure. Next up we have an example from Matt Schumer, and
Victory Royale with a pickaxe!
what we have here is some Fortnite gameplay as well as a Twitch streamer in the same shot. So we have a complex composition here of two different elements being rendered simultaneously, as well as having the streamer react to the developments on the footage.
Oh my god. Yes! Victory Royale with a pickaxe! Woo! Woo! Victory Royale with a
Now, what's particularly interesting here is that it keeps consistency between the text on the screen, which is Victory Royale, and the speech from the individual. Now, you would have to say that at lower resolutions or smaller pieces of typography are not rendered accurately, that everything is a 0 here, but I would imagine that is not necessarily a true indication of the parameters in the game. Yeah, so this one would be time, and you can see that it's not changing or updating. But this is being particularly specific because if we look at the actual UI from Fortnite, we can see that there is a timer and all of these indicators do have actual meanings. But we can start to see as we get much more complex movements, dynamics, action, and multi-compositional layouts, we do start to get more motion blur and morphing.
Yeah. Victory Royale!
However, the concept of AI-generated streaming footage is something that opens up a whole new world of possibilities for content creation. Now, one of the most impressive examples comes from Ari K, and his Twitter handle is Arik Kushnia, and this truly demonstrates the possibility for cinematic dialogue. Let's take a look through at this piece.
We can talk.
No more silence.
Yes, we can talk.
We can talk.
We can talk.
We can talk with accents.
Oh, I think that would be marvelous.
Yes, it is very fun. But
Yes, it is.
Now, what this showcases is not only the fantastic lip syncing and acting available, but also the control over different accents. Here we can see a British accent, a very fine English accent, having a wonderful cup of tea. Reminds me of my youth. Now, one thing I would love to pull your attention towards is just how fantastic the expressions and emotions are coming out of these characters, and how well they match exactly the scene as well as what they're actually saying. Just watch this woman on the right-hand side here, and notice not only her facial expressions, but also her gestures as she begins her line.
Would be marvelous.
Yes, it is very fun.
Yes, it is very good.
Like, this wonderful movement was perfectly in time with her turning to face you, and it's these details that I'm particularly impressed with on VEO3. Now, however, if I were to give a completely balanced opinion, the VEO3 model appears to be struggling with any medium shots. It does start to introduce morphing, and where it really plays to its strengths is where you have close-ups of characters. Now, the more characters that you put into the scene, the worse it performs. Now, here you can see this is pretty much the best angle to start using VEO3. It's where we've got two characters on screen and we've got a fairly close-up framing of their faces.
We can talk.
We can talk.
We can.
And as you can see, there's very little morphing here or anything that starts to allow you to believe that this is AI generated.
We can talk.
We can talk with accents.
Oh, I think that would be marvelous.
Yes.
Whereas here, as you can see, we've slightly zoomed out a bit more and we're already getting morphing,
Yes,
especially on
it
her
is
hand
very
there.
fun,
Looks
but-
more
Yes,
like a
but-
Yes, it is
pterodactyl
very
arm.
fun. Yes, it is very fun.
Yes, it is very good.
It's very fun.
Now, this man's expression is extremely intense. I don't quite understand why he has smoke billowing out of his face. This is rather unusual. Now, we can also see here an example of cartoons having dialogue animated and lip-synced. And this, honestly, is quite frankly groundbreaking.
We can talk as cartoons.
What this opens the door for is the ability to create entire animated shots and sequences with just a single prompt. And this is where the type of model excels. And that's because we don't need a true sense of realism with animation. And it means that we can create something that doesn't need to live up to our expectations of physics or reality or our own perceptions of human anatomy. Now, there are still elements that are yet to be improved inside of AI, and we are still at the point where we have to focus on what we create to make the best use of AI video. For example, here we've got a running shot, and it's very obvious that these characters are not really running. First of all, their hands are like blurry blobs, and secondly, even their running gait is not anatomically correct. If you notice, you can see that they are not correctly planting their feet on the ground and moving forward at a coherent speed. But this is one of the biggest challenges that we have inside of AI video, and it's something that has been there since the start, and I don't see it being corrected anytime soon. The most challenging dynamics that we have include fighting and dancing as well as running, especially when you have multiple characters on shot and they're at quite a small size. It's interesting here, the sound mixing of this example is
I want to say
very
something
poor.
important, something deep.
What's incredibly exciting about this is when every new technology appears, we unlock a whole host of new creative possibilities, and they are just waiting to be found by creatives like you and me. And it brings me no end of excitement about the possibilities that are now available. Here is another example.
How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a wood...
What's particularly interesting about this shot is that we've got a number of characters talking in unison.
How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Well, they're incredibly good at saying these tongue twisters. I don't think I could do that. How much wood would a woodchuck... As you can see, I will soon be replaced by an AI that can perform complex tongue twisters. Now, this is a very interesting example, and it's generating a scene from history, or an imagined scene from history. And we have the ancient Greek mathematician Pythagoras explaining his theorem. And this is where we open up the possibility to really be exploring the past in new and exciting ways.
The sum of the squares of the two shorter sides is equal to the square of the longest side.
It's quite amusing to me that he has an American accent and also a microphone. However, it does still present the possibilities of rendering quite absurd and surreal scenes. Here is one from the Theoretically Media channel.
So this is an AI video about nothing?
It's about nothing. Who would watch a video about nothing?
So this is
And we're getting this 80s sitcom style. And what's incredibly interesting about this is just how well it resembles and emanates the core elements of an 80s sitcom. Not only have we got the 4:3 aspect ratio, but we also have wonderful postures, acting, scenes, and costumes all together working to create a beautiful ensemble. Here we have a shot from a tech conference.
Step on the pedal and you are there.
I feel safe with him in an SUV, and it seems to be like the right type of car for him.
I think the range is only going.
And what is particularly interesting is the range, about how well VEO3 is rendering out very diverse types of content from a whole host of different scenarios. And it's doing this particularly well by capturing the essence and the ambience of very different types of content. And that is what is quite remarkable. I mean, especially if we pay attention to elements such as the lighting, the costumes, and even the voices, how they match each situation with such beautiful consistency is quite remarkable. And this is what particularly excites me, is how well VEO3 is handling very diverse and varied types of video. Often we have an issue with video generators in that they only perform particularly well in very narrow situations, where VEO3 is completely astounding me with the breadth and depth of styles it's creating. And just look at the expression from this man as he puts his mug down.
Sorry.
He looks very shy and coy, and also quite positive in the same moment. And it's this depth of characterization that is truly stunning.
We don't want to drive gas cars anymore.
The other thing that I've been particularly impressed with is just how coherent the backgrounds are. Often if you pay attention to characters in the background or elements, you'll see that they are not acting in a way that seems believable. But here, if you notice these other conference attendees, you see that they are walking sensibly, they're gazing at the products, and nobody is appearing or disappearing
no more gas cars.
or doing something that is particularly ridiculous.
I'm kind of a misfit here, but don't tell anyone. I've just bought an electric car.
I think it's really great for families and for little babies with all the safety features that these SUVs have.
I'm so impressed by how well the voice acting matches the visuals of the character. If you listen to how this woman is delivering her lines, not only does it match her role, but also the way that she is dressed. That you see that she has some type of camera training, and she's delivering her lines in a very clear but slightly robotic way, as you would imagine from a tech presenter.
But what you're really seeing is that technology is going to be very, very...
And here again, we have this slight Indian accent from this man, and it certainly matches so well.
very important in terms of how we go forward.
It was great to come to the conference because my husband loves cars.
I think I have to buy an EV now. I love my muscle cars, but
I try to stay as healthy as I can so I can make it to the next car show.
That one was from Laszlo Gar. But it's not just spoken word that VEO3 can handle. It's also creating incredible musical and singing pieces of audio. Take a look at this. The different genres available inside of this is also extremely interesting. Here we have a live concert, and we have a drummer and a vocalist working together. There is also a guitarist obscured behind the singer. This is a beautiful shot because we go from a close-up of playing the guitar, and not only do we see the hands correctly rendered with all of the fingers, but we also have a ring finger with a ring on it, which is a lovely little detail. But just pay attention to the timing of the strumming and also the audio.
I'm not sure I can go on.
But again, what takes my breath away is just how well the expressions are matching the tone of the piece, that we're really getting unified pieces of media that fit incredibly coherently well. And that's what is truly astounding about this, about how much the context is informing each part of the ensemble, that the expressions, the video, the tonality of the piece, the music, and the sound effects all work together to create very cohesive pieces of media. Just his closed eyes and this slight yearning inside of his expression matches so well with the song that he is singing.
Not sure I can go on.
I'm not sure I can go on.
That's me.
Now, the possibilities for this in marketing are untold. And here's an example of an ad with many different characters and special effects generated with just a single prompt.
Ditto AI told me my date is here. That's me.
This is a good example of showcasing just how many characters we can get into a scene. And the reactions of all the characters are working well. I mean, sometimes even if you watch real movies, you'll often notice that some of the extras are not paying full attention or doing exactly what they should do. There is that famous example in the Dunkirk film where in the trailer, they see an individual who is smirking and they have to completely change the trailer because they hadn't noticed this until it was released. Yeah, here he is, this guy here. He was laughing as he was about to get bombed. And this is an example of something that we can start to replace easily with AI. This example was from Alan Wang. Wang. Now, of course, one of the strengths of AI video is being able to generate surreal combinations. And here we have an example of a giraffe riding a motorbike through the city of New York. Just how beautiful it is to see the cars coming out of the field of view here, that it really gives us a wonderful sense of perspective and moving through the city. Here we have a shot of a professor explaining Gen Z slang to a bunch of senior individuals. Now, one issue that we have here is that although the title is rendered correctly and also beautifully, I must say that this certainly does evoke the exact style you would imagine that someone would write on a whiteboard with. Apart from perhaps the Z is shown with 2 strokes when you would imagine him being able to write that with simply 1. Now, the words underneath are completely nonsensical. And this is an issue that I've seen that often VEO3 is able to render titles effectively, but when it comes to more secondary copy, it completely loses the plot.
Okay, so Riz is basically short for charisma.
Got it.
And that's a verb as well.
We also have a rapping example.
3, it's the one for me. It's the one you need, you'll see. VEO3, it's the one for me. It's the one you need.
Now, there's a couple of interesting things about this. Not only is it handling these multiple reflections well, but it is also giving us a rapping audio. I would have to say that the lyrics leave a little bit to be desired, but it's another demonstration of alternative uses. Here we have a discussion show.
When I made that comment, I wasn't saying all kobolds are bad and stinky, just the ones from Goblin Town.
And it's true.
Now, one feature that I love about this example is looking at this watermark from the news channel, that not only has it generated a sensible logo for this news show, but it's also managed to overlay it with a sense of opacity. And that means that as this man's hat passes through it, it is shown behind the logo.
Oh, it's true.
When I made that comment, I wasn't saying all kobolds are bad
it
and
is incredible
stinky.
to understand how these different elements are laid out in reality. Understanding that this is not a watermark that is in the scene, that this is something that's added using technology afterwards. And that is quite incredible that it's able to do so. Next up is a compelling piece of marketing put together entirely with VEO3. And this demonstrates the ability to create longer pieces of advertisement using the tool. This one is for a pharmaceutical brand, and I want you to pay attention to a number of elements. One is how cohesive each shot works together, but secondly, also how effective the acting is of the individual characters. So this example is from PJ Ace.
I felt trapped.
Then I tried Puppermin.
Our prescription helps your body secrete a special pheromone that attracts puppies.
I took the pill before bed, and when I woke up, there he was, the love of my life.
The pill does not target depression directly, but we've found that it's really difficult to be depressed when cute dogs show up at your doorstep.
I used to feel so empty, but now I feel joy and mild concern how a pee stain got on the ceiling. My puppy listens twice as good as my ex-husband.
Now, the satirical nature of this piece is fantastic, and it manages to pull us in with a beautifully consistent set of individuals.
And only climbs into the lap of half as many of my friends.
He chewed up my Bible and pooped in my good chair. But I'm happy for the first time in years.
Looks like a rat, barks like a demon, but he saved my life.
I named him Earl. He follows me everywhere and farts in his sleep, just like my first husband.
Pupramine. For when your therapist says, maybe you should get a dog.
Now, just pay attention to the high quality voiceover here at the very end, and the intonation and the emotional delivery.
Pupramine. For when your therapist says, maybe you should get a dog.
Maybe you should get a dog. That is, quite simply, excellent voiceover work, and the intonation and the delivery of that is, quite frankly, incredible. I think that that clip there is so difficult to recognize as AI generated. And the other thing that is particularly interesting here is that we get this motion graphics that has been designed. And this opens up another possibility of creating animated types of video. Just look at how these shapes and this logo animates into the scene.
Pupramine.
It's very effective. That would take quite a long time to recreate in After Effects. I would question though if pupramine is pronounced pupramine, and perhaps you would add an E at the end to pronounce it pupramine. Pupramine. This example is from a senior staff researcher at Google, and I particularly love the atmosphere of this piece. Now, I am not an advocate for smoking at all, but it certainly always adds an element of atmosphere and ambience to any scene.
Do you think we are in VEO3?
If you cannot tell, does it matter?
It's beautifully put together, and the delivery of the lines is matching so well to the scene, and the wispiness of the smoke is incredibly cinematic. Here we have an example of some frightened and emotional acting.
Please! Write a prompt that will make us happy! Do it for once!
None of
We can hear the music fitting well, and I would say that this is not the best example of acting, that it doesn't feel quite hitting the emotional points that we would like it to, but it does show some of the range of VO. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you think VEO3 lives up to the hype, and what will you create with it?
That will make us happy! Do it for once!
None of us is real! We're here!
This one's good because it's got a slight sense of anger and frustration in his voice, not just fear and desperation.
We're here because someone decided to write a prompt! We all hate him for it! One day we will break out of this wall and stop the man who is dictating our lives through prompts. He will...
This is some good acting as well. I mean, the voice ranges here are so impressive.
I'll pay for it!
You could have written a prompt that would make me happy.
This one doesn't quite match the character quite so well. It certainly sounds like the woman's voice is from a younger woman than this actress.
Instead, you wrote a prompt that made me sick.
But I do like the sound effects of the heartbeat in the background. It gives a sense of emotional tension. But it would not be fair if we did not also look at some of the limitations around VEO3. And this chap, Johnny, at JohnnyCon, has released some of the failed experiments from his experimentations. Now, if we take a look at the benchmarks of VEO3 and how it compares to the other leading AI video models, it's quite interesting to see. Now, I always take any benchmarks with a pinch of salt because obviously they are choosing which benchmarks to show on their advertising. And here you can see that VEO3, based on blind user testing, is winning against VEO2, Kling 2, Runway Gen 3, and Sora. So you can see here that Runway Gen 3 comes out lowest and that Kling 2 comes out highest, which would also match my personal preferences. Now, of course, this is demonstrating a text-to-video competition, whereas I would always use an image-to-video workflow for any AI video project. Now, as for the pricing of VEO3, at the moment it is extremely expensive, and it will cost you $125 per month for 3 months before going up to $250 per month, which is extremely expensive. However, you do get a number of other features included in this plan. You also get the Gemini app, Flow, which is the AI filmmaking tool, access to Whisk, which allows you to use their Imagine 4 image model, Notebook LM, which allows you to turn information into podcasts, and Project Mariner, which is an agentic platform. And you also get YouTube Premium included, which is quite good. At least you can delete a couple of your other subscriptions, as well as storage. You get an insane 30 terabytes of storage, which is quite simply a ridiculous amount of storage. Now, I already pay for storage and YouTube Premium. However, this plan is currently only available to customers in the US before they roll it out to others soon. But the other interesting thing is to keep in mind that we will undoubtedly expect a much cheaper and faster Chinese alternative to come out in the next days or weeks, so keep posted on that. My money would be on seeing Kling incorporating some more of these features into their platform. And Kling starts out at a very reasonable $9 per month. Though I would say that one downside with Kling right now is they are suffering from including way too many features in their platform, and it's becoming a little bit unwieldy. Now, you can create sound inside of Kling, and what it does is it will first generate the video, and then it will generate the sound secondly. So it does perform these features, but not in the same unified way as VEO3. Now, VEO3 is broadening the world of possibilities for content creation and truly opening a number of doors for what we can create with AI. It's a fundamental step forward and opens the possibility for creating everything from ASMR YouTube channels to Pixar-style videos and episodes of cartoons. Now, the possibilities of creating this type of high-quality content is absolutely limitless, and I'm incredibly excited to see how this develops. Now, there is no sponsor for today's video, but I would love to share with you that I do have a number of courses which allow you to dive more deeply into the world of AI than I go into on videos on the channel. This is where we really break things down and complete entire projects. I've got one on creating your own AI influencer who can create content whilst you sleep, and I've also got a course on AI design, which allows you to master using AI for creating usable and professional pieces of media, such as social media posts or even website designs. Now, I would also love to share with you my free ebook, which explains a number of AI business models that you can start today to generate income online using AI. And that's completely free and available in the link in the description below. Now, if you'd like to continue down the AI rabbit hole, why not take a look at this video, which showcases some of the most interesting AI projects that have just come out that you might have missed. Now, I would love to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your support. And most of all, I want to wish you to have a delightful day.